Fantastic. Well, welcome everyone to our day 3 keynote. I am delighted to introduce Luke Dicken. Many UK-based viewers may know Luke from his time as an AI researcher in the UK, where he did his PhD. But like Hugh Laurie and John Oliver before him, Luke traveled to the US to make it big, and he is now the Director of Applied Artificial Intelligence at Zynga, Inc., who we're also very grateful to for being one of FDG 2020 sponsors as well. Luke has spent many years working to bring together the world of games research with the realities of commercial games production. And today he's going to tell us all about what that journey's been like. And I believe we're getting some secrets as well, which is pretty cool. So thank you so much, Luke, and I will hand over to you now.
Thanks, Mike. I took my intro slide out and it turns out that that was a really good move because that was much better than I was going to do. So when I was thinking about what I could kind of talk to you about in this session, a year ago we sponsored this event and I came to Cal Poly and I talked to you very briefly about kind of a little bit about my journey, but a little bit about kind of the team that I was trying to build at Zynga. And I want to tell you more about that journey. I want to tell you more about how we've made that work, and I want to tell you about the space that we've created and what we're doing. So for a little bit of a level set, you would be forgiven for being like, wait, Zynga, who the hell are they? Oh yeah, those guys who made Farmville that one time. Actually, Zynga's, in the 6 years that I've been there, we've actually really hit an upswing. So we were Pocket Gamer's top mobile games company in 2019. We've gone on an acquisition spree. Most recently, we've picked up the Peak Games team in Istanbul and also the Rollick team in Istanbul. So Toy Blast is now a Zynga game, and Rollick's Hyper Casual suite is part of our family. That's actually created a world where we are now the leading US mobile publisher. With apologies to our cousins at King, but we're number one. And then we more recently in kind of this is old news. This is about a month ago. A couple of weeks ago, we picked up PocketGamer.biz top game maker for 2020 again. The first time I believe that anybody's won that back to back. So feeling pretty good about my choice of coming over to Zynga and kind of where the business is as a whole. So in this session, it's going to be a wee bit different, and it's going to be kind of more focused on, not necessarily kind of specifically on career stuff, but it's going to be kind of painting a picture of what research can look like in a different context. And assuming that, that the academics in the room don't mute me halfway through this session, I want to tell you a little bit about what this kind of opportunity for innovation in industry really can look like. So thinking kind of my journey, I kind of got my PhD and decided that I knew everything there was to know, and that was it. And now I'm going to join this company, and they're going to make me a senior data scientist. Turns out senior data scientist isn't a super senior position. It also turns out that you don't really know as much as you think you know, mostly as a grad student, but also just as somebody who's not actually been in the industry and kind of doing the actual work. And I came into a lot of these conversations, and frankly, this is an attitude I had as a grad student because I was still a back then. But I came into a lot of these conversations feeling like I was stood there with the answers. I'm like, well, you know, you're in a big meeting about how we're going to balance the economy for this game. And I'm like, well, we could just optimize it and we could define some targets and kind of build out some algorithms and we could do that. And everybody's like, that's really cool. That's a good idea. We're not doing that. And then they start talking about level design stuff. And you're like, well, we could make a procedural content system for this game and we could make some levels. And they're like, that's a really cool idea. We're just going to get some designers in India and pay them not a whole amount. The upshot of the whole thing is that you spend a lot of time, particularly as kind of a recent grad coming into industry, feeling like you have answers and not being able to affect change. And that gets super frustrating. But the reality is actually that you just kind of misaligned with what's going on. The point of balancing the economy is not to do a cool thing with an algorithm, and it's not necessarily to make a piece of tech that makes it work. It's to get the job done. And sometimes the way that you get the job done is somebody just hangs out until midnight, slamming on a keyboard until it makes sense. Sometimes the way that you get the job done is you go, Mechanical Turk. It's not always, like, technology is not always the answer, unfortunately, because business is solving a different problem. And one of the threads that's going to be throughout this session is kind of the way that once you identify that, and once you start kind of paying attention to the business and how the business works, you can thread that needle and you can do some cool shit. But you end up having to kind of set aside this notion. Certainly, I had to set aside this notion that I was the smartest person in the room, and in pretty much every room I was going into. Oh, I've got a PhD. F you, you don't have a PhD. Yeah, okay, but they've shipped 5 games and they've made $1 million in profit this year. You know, different expertise have different capabilities, and being super smart and deep on one thing is useful, right? It's how we become really good and able to suggest stuff. But the real opportunity comes when you start to think about broadening your skill set. And this is stolen from a Valve presentation, I believe. Valve talks and has talked for years about T-shaped employees. And in the data science field, it's become a much kind of well-adopted description of somebody who has very deep expertise in one area. So for me, it's kind of the game AI stuff, but breadth of experience across everything else. And this is kind of where internally at Zynga, even, there is still a misalignment for me around, I get told by kind of execs on a regular basis, oh, you're spending too much time on this. Your superpower is the AI thing. No, my superpower is that I'm an AI guy who can speak engineering, speak game design, speak product management. I can actually be in every conversation and be able to contribute. And because of that, experience, I can bring the AI lens to those other conversations and have it be meaningful. AI for the sake of AI is not necessarily useful. AI that solves a PM's problems, that's going to make people smile. And ultimately, we want to make players smile, but in order to get to a world where we make players smile, we've got to make some PMs smile. So that's kind of been the way that my thinking has evolved on this and how we've kind of reshaped stuff. But that journey specifically looks like, you know, as you come in, you've got to get started, and that means eating a shitload of broccoli. Writing queries against databases to figure out what's happening in a game that you kind of don't care about. Let's put it together a report. Let's do the thing. Great, fine. But really what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish credibility, and you're trying to establish this kind of initial thing. So even as I transitioned into being a manager and kind of running the central analytics function, it was still very vanilla kind of stuff. But we got this opportunity to start playing around with some more esoteric stuff. And about, I don't know, 3 years ago probably, we built a match 3 procedural level generation tool. I'm not really able to go into specifics on most things today, but this one I can probably talk about a little bit. It's a neuroevolution approach. So our match 3 games have thousands of levels pre-generated. Humans have sat down and done the infinite monkeys thing on generating those levels. That means that we've got a library of content that we can draw from, and then we can say, okay, well, I like this one and I like that one. Give me more things like that. And you can kind of intuitively, you know, for those of you with experience in this kind of thing, you can kind of get a sense of how that's going to work. And then leveraging a whole bunch of kind of philosophies from this community in particular around mixed initiative approaches, we were like, well, okay, we could try and get to a world where the algorithm just generates levels. That's probably a bad idea. So creating a tool where we could then move the level designers from being creators to being curators and get to a world where they're actually kind of looking at an interface that is exactly this and kind of going, okay, well, I like this one and I like this one. This one I'm not sure about. Let's send that to a simulator. And you heard more about this kind of flow from the session yesterday from King. So a very similar kind of way of thinking about things. And getting to a world where what we were able to do was take one level designer from being able to generate a level every 4 hours to cutting that down to 20 minutes. So, you know, it's the neuroevolution to generate the new stuff. It's then the curation pass. If there's kind of questionable areas, it's a simulation pass. And then one of the cool things is we download a Unity asset. And this level gets exported from this tool as a thing that the designer can drop straight into Unity and use their existing kind of design tool flow, but also play right there and tweak in editor. Okay, well, now this is ready. And we've got a whole bunch of these levels. I've actually kind of stepped away from this project. I don't know the total number, but levels are live in our games now that have been generated using this tool. And the last time we looked at performance, the metrics were indistinguishable from the human generated stuff. So felt pretty good about that one. And it was kind of a nice self-contained project. But everybody kind of went, oh, this AI thing, there might be something there. So we got an opportunity to take a swing at another project. I didn't have a good image for this one, so you're all sick of seeing this image. But we actually, it's still in the match 3 genre, but it went to a different family of match 3 games inside of Zynga. And the mission there was match 3 levels for us come with a batch of seed numbers to the random number generator. There's 100 of them per level. And the way that it works is that intuitively you just give somebody one of these seed numbers. But just from our understanding of random numbers, some of those are going to be naturally easier. Some of them are going to be naturally harder just because of how random numbers work. And fortunately, because we're a very massively analytics driven company and it's baked into our DNA from like 10 plus years ago, we've got all the tracking around that. So we know which seed numbers are hard and which are easy. So rather than giving somebody a seed at random as they start a level, we started saying, well, okay, what if we're actually a little bit more intentional about that? What if we start kind of giving people who we think need an easy one, and people who we think need a bit more challenge, a hard one? And we did this work about 2 years ago now, 18 months, 2 years, something like that. And that kind of highlighted a few things. And one of the things that it highlighted is that we had this great idea, we had buy-in from the game team, and then it got to a prioritization conversation. And this system was ready to go January, I think, of last year on the data side. The AI team had built it, it was ready to go. Took about another 6 months to get it actually in the game because the game team were like, yeah, we'll get to that, yeah. And when we got it in, and again, I can't give you specific numbers, unfortunately, otherwise I get crucified by legal and comms. This showed a measurable lift in revenue, like measurable, which was great, right? That's a great result. But the fact that we had to wait an extra 6 months to get that in is a massive opportunity cost. So that's where we started talking about, okay, well, what can we do? How can we address that problem? there's a big problem with working with game teams, and particularly working with non-experts in this kind of AI space. And that is that they are generally not incentivized to take risks. They are, particularly in kind of a public company kind of setting, we want kind of to be able to forecast our revenue. We need to be able to give guidance to Wall Street. And as a result, it needs to be predictable. So when you say, hey, I've got this crazy idea and I think that we're going to be able to do this thing, everybody goes, that's nice. We're going to add guilds to this game because we understand guilds. Not necessarily what you're looking for. So the mission then became, okay, how do we work around that problem? And the first thing that we had to do was kind of figure out what we were going to do. So as researchers and as academic researchers, this is the mission. Cool research. What can we do? What are we going to be interested in? What do we think is going to be publishable? What's going to keep us going and make us get out of bed in the morning? And holy shit, we need reasons to get out of bed in the morning. In business, it's not exactly that, right? It's a little bit more like, okay, well, you've got your cool research, great. Where are the business opportunities? And then good shit happens at the intersection of those things. So you're going to spend quite a bit of time kind of trying to find that opportunity. For us, these numbers are from 2014 because Games Brief had a nice slide from one of our investor decks, and I didn't want to redo the image. One of the big challenges of the free-to-play space is conversion levels. You know, speaking in general terms, please don't quote numbers at me because I'll get in trouble. The free-to-play space as a whole operates by bringing a shitload of people into your games, by advertising the hell out of it, and accepting that most of those people are just going to hate it and leave. And 2%, maybe, kind of good numbers are somewhere between 2 and 10, are going to eventually give you some money. So effectively, free-to-play games are a giant sieve, sifting through all these people that we think might like the game and finding the ones who do. And it's so we a bit of a problem, right? If we could kind of be more targeted in how we do that, then that would be good. But equally, if we could kind of, so effectively, you can alter the front of the funnel and you can get more people in. That will generate more revenue. You can be more specific about who you're bringing into the game. Theoretically, that will raise your conversion. That will probably generate more money. Or the problem that we decided was going to be key for the business is figure out how to raise conversion by giving more people what they like. And intuitively, that sounds like a design problem. Zynga's never really been well known for game design. Historically, we've won because of our analytics tracking and our ability to iterate. And you can, this is actually something that I learned from people in this room, maybe even Julian, years and years and years ago, with the Ms. Pac-Man competition, the one and only year that I applied an agent to that competition. The thing that won that competition that year was the default agent that got shipped as part of the system with Java garbage collection turned off, which kind of gave me a life lesson that doing the wrong thing super fast actually gets you to the right thing eventually. So it turns out that that's been a bit of a mentality at Zynga as well. But what if we could figure out how to kind of customize the game and get to a world where we were giving people experiences that match their play style and their personality. And as you heard in today's Thursday, so Tuesday's sessions, where there was a whole bunch on personalization. This is the problem that we kind of took to our execs and were like, hey, we think that this could be a big opportunity for us. And they said, yes. And I said, okay, cool. I need to talk to some people, and started finding sponsors. So I'm kind of really fortunate that my boss, who's now VP of Data and Analytics and User Acquisition, has been he used to be an analyst. He's got a lot of technical skills. He's got a lot of political capital internally, and I'm also blessed to have a CTO for the company who kind of understands at a high level what we're doing and the opportunity. And we were able to build kind of a coalition of enough political capital to start exploring this. So a year ago, a little over a year ago, we kind of had the first round of pitches to the execs, and I came in with these decks that said, hey, I reckon I need 9 people and I'm going to need 9 months. And they said, cool, you've got 3 people and you've got till October. So we were able to get this team started and off the ground. And one of the things that's interesting about kind of creating a new team inside of a big corporate culture is that you probably don't want to do most of the things that the big corporate culture does. So I called this session from the ivory tower to the skunk works. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term skunk works, it was kind of pioneered by Lockheed in World War II. And I highly recommend going and reading Kelly's 14 rules, the 14 rules of how the skunk works operates. The Skunk Works was kind of this independent group within Lockheed that was focused on high value, innovative R&D for the military. Kelly's rules are interesting. About half of them are super applicable across everything. Half of them are very specific to the military, and a couple of them very much read like F this guy in particular. But it created this environment that kind of allowed us to create a culture of move fast and break things, to take Facebook's kind of old mantra. I think the new one is move fast and break society, but that's a whole other thing. The point is that because we were able to kind of operate independently, and when I say operate independently, like we literally moved our desks to the basement and just sat in the basement in a corner on our own, not engaging with the rest of the company. We were able to kind of carve out our own thing. We were able to move incredibly fast to begin with, incur a shitload of tech debt doing that, and then start to grow the team. That has been kind of one of the big challenges. Finding a way to work inside of a corporate environment is real hard, particularly one that has kind of Zynga, I haven't seen what the stock is doing at the moment. There's so much volatility that we are somewhere between an $8 billion company and a $10 billion company. We're 2,000 plus people spread across at least six, I think, different countries. Like, we're a big operation, and as a result, there's a lot of kind of momentum and status quo there. So finding a way to kind of break out of that and make it work was key. Everything's been on fire for the last year. Honestly, you're trying to do something that is kind of innovation based, and it turns out that's not even the hard part. I know what we need to make, and my team understands what we're trying to do and why and how to make it work. And we've been able to bring in some incredible talent from this community to support that. But how do you integrate with Zynga's identity system? How do you get Facebook logging work? How do you get ads to show in your game? Like, how do you even in a 2,000 person company get somebody to approve you launching a game? The challenges, and this is coming back to the earlier thread, the challenges have not been on the AI side. They've been on like the politics, they've been on the institutional knowledge that is just not easy to access. They've been around all of the kind of ancillary stuff. But we're coming up to the finish line now. This session was supposed to have a lot more specifics in it, and I do apologize that these are missing. We're in the process of writing 8 patent applications around the technology that we've built. That was supposed to be submitted yesterday. which would have allowed me to talk about it today. And yesterday I got an email from the lawyer saying, hey, we need more time. So unfortunately, it's just the way the thing bounces occasionally. But to summarize kind of what I've been trying to get across, a year ago, I said I wanted to kind of build somewhere. I wanted to build the team that I needed when I was a PhD student, and I hated academia. I had nowhere to go. I had to plow through it. But it turns out that there are ways that you can kind of create space for innovation. And it's important to think about it in those terms, because you can very easily get lost in the service of providing existing game teams with kind of incremental approaches. Existing game teams don't know enough. What they're going to tell you whenever you ask them what you want, what they want, is they're going to tell you they want a faster horse. And you can be stood there going, hey, I've got this idea for a car, and they're not listening because they want a faster horse. Eventually, though, you can find people to listen and go, oh, car, that sounds interesting, let's do that. If you're in this room, there's a good chance you're already good enough at the AI parts, or you're good enough at your specific discipline. Like I say, the hard bits come when you have to interact with everything else. And I really hope that the experience we've had in kind of founding this team and getting up and running, growing to a point now where we are 8 people, is going to kind of provide some signposts for those of you here who are kind of a little bit potentially disillusioned with academia, or maybe just thinking about what's next. Doesn't always have to be about disillusionment. But I feel like the model that we've adopted could probably be applicable elsewhere. Just please find your own space to work in. Stay in your lane. My lane is apparently personalization. In that spirit, here are some resources. And normally, in a talk like this, you would probably expect to see a bunch of papers and a bunch of here's some things that are relevant. I would like to really encourage you to read outside of your discipline. These 4 books have been pretty interesting and instrumental in guiding and shaping my thinking around how we kind of, Loonshots is about kind of shaping organizations. Lean Startup is about kind of how we run our ops and how we kind of think about fast iteration. Seeing around corners is more about kind of thinking about business and kind of thinking about where those opportunities are going to be. Stories That Stick is fantastic for kind of helping to articulate to stakeholders and execs and kind of be able to tell a narrative that's why they should care. Because just going in and being like, hey, AI, that's not going to get it done. So to close out, we've built this fantastic team, and I want to shout out the entire team, but the bottom row there has people that you are familiar with and who've spoken at this, or had papers at least, at this conference this week. We are creating a really great space. There's about to be 2 openings on this team. So maybe you'd like to join us. Maybe you'd like to join us for Summer 21. If you think that this might be up your alley, I have made a custom bit.ly link that did not come out of bit.ly automatically. So bit.ly/Zynga AI interns should take you straight to the job page for us. And you can read the JD, you can see what we're doing there. It's last year's JD because I did not have time to write a new one, but we're doing most of the same stuff. I'll be hanging out on Discord after this. I know we're running a bit up against time, so if you want to send questions there or anything like that, I'm going to have the team be there. You can reach me on email, you can find me on Twitter. So thank you very much. And with that, I will turn it back to Mike in case there's time for questions.
Thank you so much, Luke. I really appreciate it. And navigating all of this patent and law and communications and corporate stuff, we do appreciate it. Antonis, how are we doing for time? Could we maybe have 1 question or something like that?
A bit low on time. Maybe we can do 1 question, but Discord will be open in the keynotes.
Yeah, we'll definitely do some, that's a good point, Anne. We should make sure that we edit that out of the recording before it goes online. Don't worry, we will do that, Luke. Maybe 1 quick question from Fouad, and then we can have other questions on the Discord later, but just that 1 quick question if you've got it.
Sure, and Luke, thank you for sort of reiterating what a lot of us are frustrated about industry not fully embracing AI when it could, when a lot of times we're talking about cost savings, in our methods, and it's frustrating why they come back with not adopting some of that. I'm just curious, is testing part of that decision making? Is that one of the reasons, the effort and the cost of testing, that sort of AI complicates?
Honestly, I would probably say the answer is no, because the decision making is significantly more high level than that being a concern. The real concern is when you get to kind of the kind of GMs for the game teams, or the director of products, the kind of shot callers for the game team. They're making the decision against purely like, hey, my P&L says that I'm going to make $10 million, and yeah, your thing might mean that I can make $20 million, but if it fails, I make $2 million and I get fired. So it really is kind of risk management and incentivization structure, more so than like a tactical reason to not do it. Now, when you get down into the weeds, things like that do start to become factors. But the first kind of rejection happens way further upstream than those kinds of concerns, at least in my experience.
Thank you so much for that quick question. I think we'll do the clap emojis and we'll take the conversation back onto Discord, but sincere thanks again, Luke. That was really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.